I know I shouldn't have titled this the way that I did, but I could not resist. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be comparing some books and series that I have strong opinions on whether or not I like audio or not for, and just kind of talking about the difference, audio, physical, ebook, whatever, and talking there. So I will say I'm aware of how I titled this. I did it because it was fun, and I figured people like immediately be like, just come on, be nice in the comments. You know, express your stuff. Don't start a whole bunch of crap. This is not that serious of a topic, no matter how badly you may want it to be. So it's okay. But we're going to talk about this because I was just thinking about this as I was listening to the new Bobaverse book, and that's a series that I've only ever done audio on, and it's a series that I'm not like crazy about, but I legitimately, it's one of the earlier audio things I tried because I really like the narrator Ray Porter, and it's a series that I don't think I would read if it, you know, physically. I don't own copies, I don't plan to get copies, but as long as they're being narrated by Ray Porter, I will continue to consume them via audio because I really like the way he narrates it, and it kind of pulls me along. So I've thought about this a little bit more with audio because I feel like it's really easy to point out some of the books that are greatly made better by audio. But so then I'm just thinking, I'm like, are there things that don't work that well with audio, or are there things that it doesn't matter? And so that's kind of what I want to talk about here. So starting with audio, I mentioned the Bobaverse series, and those are it's by Dennis Taylor, and those are, like I said, I really enjoy the audio, and like they're pretty solid. Like I think the first couple books are really solid. Heaven's River was a bit too long-winded, but I'm doing the new one right now, and it's pretty solid as well. But again, so much of it is just I like Ray Porter, and so that's one of those things. This is a series that's a little more on the extreme. I don't think I would be interested in just reading. I really am interested in it because of the audio. Started like the first audio book I fell in love with that I still absolutely love is Project Hail Mary, and Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir is another one of those books where I do actually own a physical copy of that one, to be fair, which I bought I think before I listened to the audio, but everybody says do the audio, and I completely agree. That's a book I think it's well written, and I think I would still enjoy it, but I don't think it would be like a favorite for me without the audio, because again, Ray Porter has a great narration. He just fits the style really, really well. I've listened to some of his fantasy too, but it's his style for sci-fi that just works. It's just very conversational, fun, and entertaining for me. And that one as well. There's some extra stuff in Project Hail Mary, but again, I don't feel like it would be as much of a favorite without the audio. And then, of course, there's the big one, the series that is in a genre I don't even like for the most part, and that I struggle with, but I absolutely love this series, which is, of course, Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dennyman, narrated by Jeff Hayes. And it's a series that, you know, I've only ever done the audio for. And the audio is absolutely, you're not really going to find any audio better, I don't think. I would put up the Jeff Hayes narration alone above any full cast thing, just because Jeff Hayes is a full cast to himself. Those audiobooks are phenomenal, and it's made it so that it is a good story. Once again, don't get me wrong, well written. I don't really like progression that much. I don't really like lit RPG that much, and it's more lit RPG than progression, but genres that I've really struggled with, and yet that I absolutely love, and the audio I think has a whole lot to do with it. And so like I did back the Kickstarter for the first book, the hardcover, the fancy one, but I'm never going to read it physically. It's just one of those things that I've re-listened to the entire series as well, and I'll re-listen. Maybe I might re-listen to the Bobaverse books at some point. I definitely will re-listen to Project Hail Mary, but they're ones that I don't think I would ever physically read because the audio is just an integral part of what makes me love them. So then what's on the other side? Books that I really, for me, feel like I'm going to enjoy a lot more if I'm reading physically than audio. The first author in general, because this is kind of, I feel like a lot of it does have to do with authors, is Guy Gavriel Kay, because I have done a mix. With Guy Gavriel Kay, I've done a mix of physical, ebook, and audio for most of his stuff, and most of the audio is good, and like the narrators are good. But the way he writes, it's the kind of author I really do like to read physically, but the way he writes as well, sometimes it's harder to follow on audio because he'll just kind of trail off, or he'll switch POVs without a lot of warning. And when you're reading it, you can see like, oh, there's the chapter break, or there's something going on here. It's actually a little bit harder to follow when you're doing just audio. And I've never done one of his books just audio either. So that's why I feel like I've done every format that you can do for Guy Gavriel Kay, and so I definitely prefer physically reading him, even more than ebooks, just because I don't know, I do like my reading as well, but for something Guy Gavriel Kay, I like holding the books. And then another one that's for slightly different reasons, but Robin Hobb. Robin Hobb books, I don't really like the audio for. I didn't really like the narrators for the most part. I did try a little bit. I physically read almost the entire series because the first 9 books, I think, were before I even really did audio. And I did a little bit of audio for Rain Wilds because I didn't really care for it. I was trying to get through quicker. And I tried to do a little bit of audio for the last trilogy, Fitz and the Fool, but I hated the narrator so much I just couldn't do it. So that's one where, if there was a really good narrator, it'd probably be fine. But for me, reading those books physically was a much, much better experience. And so I would not even attempt to do audio at any point even for a reread, which audio is something we'll talk about that when I talk about the other ones that I've used in that way before. But those are books because of the narrators that I didn't really care for. And so I think there's something to be said with that too. And then we have one that also, it's kind of a similar thing, where it's a few different pieces, but Discworld. Discworld is, I've read physically almost all of my I've read around half of them. I've tried ebooks, but ebooks are sort of a pain because of the fact that the footnotes are just not the easiest with ebooks, and the audiobooks, which there have been lots of different narrators. I know they just did new ones, but some of them it's the style or like the accent just didn't really land. So it's one I've kind of struggled to do any format except for physical, and so I think really fits really well as one of those ones where just physical is what works for me. Especially I've gotten, they're just off screen, but a fair amount of the little hardcovers, which are really nice to sit and read out of. As well. And so, I think those are another ones too, where just reading them, I think works. And also just, doing it in my head works really well for those as well, versus the different interpretations from narrators. So that's another series where for me, physical is what I definitely have a preference for. So what about ones that do really work either? The big one for me is Wheel of Time. The Wheel of Time is how I kind of got myself used to audio, because I've read that series so many times. I read all of the, the newer ones I've read, not as many times, but the first books up through Knife of Dreams, I've read probably a dozen times, because I just read them and reread them a lot when I was younger. And then I've read multiple times the other books in the series as well. But I'm like, okay, this is a series I know really, really super well. So I started with audio there, something where, like, if I was a little concerned, just because I hadn't really tried it, I'm like, am I gonna sometimes lose focus, anything like that? So just to make sure I tried it, and I really enjoyed the audio experience. It was really nice to consume something that I had already consumed in a different way, and go that route. And so that is something that I've done. I like to do when I'm doing a reread. I like to do audio because A, it allows me to fit it in and not cut it into my physical reading time, but B, because it's a different way to experience a series that I loved. Another one like that is more recently Crown of Stars. Crown of Stars is a series that I read the whole thing physically, really, really enjoyed it. With doing a reread, I did the audiobooks, which also were very, very good. And it also added something to have that different experience with it as well. And I enjoyed it both times, very much so with both series, quite a lot. Did not change my opinions of them, really, really enjoyed them, and it super worked. One, though, that's also more recent and not a reread was The Last King Lost Nard series by Tad Williams. And that one too, the narrator, the way he does some voices, really good narrator, but the way he does some voices are a little bit different and kind of weird, but it worked really well on audio with those. Memory Star and Thorn I read physically. I didn't really do audio at the time, but again, it's probably a candidate for one that I might do an audio or reread of at some point, and go back and experience it that way, because it's a favorite series of mine and I like to do that. But yeah, there was a series too that I did a lot of it audio, just because I have very limited reading time right now, and so audio is a little bit easier for me to get to, and while doing other things, you're driving, that kind of thing. So it's worked really, really well. And it's a series too that I did. The first book I triple formatted. I did physical ebook and audio. The rest of it was primarily audio with a little bit mixed in, and I think worked really well both ways for me for that one. So that's another one where I'm like, hey, I think both work and both can consume. Now, what I'm really curious on to see how I'm going to feel fully, because I've had pretty limited looks, but is The Wars of Light and Shadow, because I read that entire series physically. Barring Destiny's Calling, I did do a bit of it on audio because that was the only one that had audio at the time. Curse of the Mistwraith, I listened to bits of, I haven't actually listened to the whole thing, but I listened to bits and pieces of it when I just missed Janny Wirtz. To be perfectly honest, I'll listen to a little bit of it. I do plan though to listen to the whole thing, and assuming we do get audio for the whole thing, I will absolutely be doing audio of the whole thing as a good way to get back to it, to experience it differently. Again, really great narration, and that her prose is another one where I feel like it being read out loud, it's just is so meant for that. And I've done a lot of reading that out loud as well, just to myself. And so I think it'll work really, really well there too, and be another either one, but it'll be interesting to see. So those are kind of my thoughts. Those are some things that for me, only audio, only physical, either or. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think though. Do you have series like that where you just really prefer this physical and this audio? And I know some people just prefer audio, some people prefer physical ebook. I know people have strong opinions. I'm really not trying to do that and have people arguing about this, that, the other thing. I'm just like, I'm really curious, are there certain series, maybe some of the same ones, maybe different ones, where you feel like doing audio really upped your enjoyment, or you feel like doing, physical really upped your enjoyment? Because I think it could go either way. And I think there are probably a lot of people who have opinions on that. So I am legitimately curious to see what people's thoughts are. So let me know in the comments your thoughts, any of the ones I mentioned, or just your own. Like I said, I'd be really curious. And I'm always interested to see, are there series that I should check out audio, that I should stay away from? Because I've heard a lot of people with opinions on both. And yeah, it's sometimes have been really good call. Like, oh, this is really good audio. I like that for the series. Or people have told me not to check out audio for certain books or series. And I'm like, yeah, that is a good call too. Because it can affect how you feel about a series as well. It's another facet to that. So let me know your thoughts. And otherwise, make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the links in the description as always for the Patreon if you want to support what I do, as well as the link to the Wizardly Enclave Discord if you want to chat books, whether any of these books, other books, really anything at all. It's a lot of fun and we'd love to have you. And of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.